before we do that right now, I want to take you to Louisiana, to the Adjutant General of that state. He's in charge of all the National Guards. That's Major General Glenn Curtis, and he's going to speak because 4 of his troops were on board that helicopter that crashed last night.
And the Marine Corps. I am confirming to you that we had a training accident over in Florida where we had 2 of our Black Hawk helicopters doing training missions with the Marine Corps. As we speak, there's an ongoing search and rescue operation to search for that aircraft and search for our service members that were on it. And that's as much as I know at this point, or as many details as I know. A little bit about the unit. The unit's official designation is the 1st of the 244th Assault Helicopter Battalion. They do fly the UH-60 Blackhawks and have approximately 385 soldiers in this unit. It is a very experienced unit and one that has received numerous accolades from its service to our nation, to include deployed to Iraq twice in 2004 and 5, and then in 2008 and 2009. Also domestically here in our state, it responded to Hurricane Katrina, Rita, the oil spill that we experienced a couple of years ago, the Mississippi River flood, and Tropical Storm Isaac. I will tell you that both of the pilots were instructor pilots, which is really one of the highest, or the highest rating we have for our pilots in the Army. And the entire crew had several thousand hours of operation flying the Black Hawk. Today I was contacted by President Obama and Governor Jindal, and they asked that I extend to the families and to our service members in Louisiana National Guard that we are in their thoughts and prayers, and that the whole of government, both at the federal and state level, are at our disposal to take care of our soldiers and take care of their families. Let me be very clear. At this hour, our priorities, my priorities, are search and rescue for our soldiers and the Marines, and secondly is to take care of our families, and we are doing both of those. This will remain a search and rescue operation until further notice, and I would ask you, out of respect for the families, I will not release any names at this time, due to respect for them, and I would ask you not to try to basically hunt them down and try to do interviews with them at this point until we figure out where we're going. I would ask you to keep our service members and their families in your thoughts and prayers, and that really concludes my comments. I will be glad to try to answer any questions that you may have. Yes, sir. Well, we were supporting the Marine Corps, and so that's really about the extent that I know. We were doing lift operations for them. I would refer you back to the Marine Corps for any details on the specifics of the missions or the training missions they were on. Yes, ma'am. I do not have that information. I have been talking to the incident command post over at Eglin, and you know, what I'm getting back from them is that is a search and rescue operation. I don't have the specific dates. They've been there they left Sunday. Okay. They left Sunday, and it was a normal course of business for us to work across the services in training missions. Right. Yes, sir. At what point do you ask the instructor pilot to make a decision as to whether or not to go or not to go? So what was kind of that? Yeah, now I'm not a pilot, so I'll speak from a novice standpoint. But they are very cognizant of weather conditions before they depart on a mission. But you know, you can depart from one station and hit weather that you didn't expect. And so the conditions have to be right for them to take off. Now, what they run into while they're airborne is a different story. General Rudy Harper, Fox News. Can you talk about training minimums with the National Guard? Well, our pilots train to the same standards as active Army pilots or any helicopter pilots across the Department of Defense. When I tell you these guys were instructor pilots, I can tell you they had several thousand hours in that cockpit, and they had several thousand combat hours in that cockpit. But they go through simulations for all kind of situations that may come up, whether it's weather, engine problems, et cetera, et cetera. But the standards that are required for any soldier in the Army and across DOD to be a helicopter pilot, they had met those over the years, and they have to remain current.
Was there any call for help? Do you know of right now?
I do not know that. I do not know that. I think the incident command post will look into that, and then there will be an investigation pending outcome to see exactly what was said or not, when.
Sure, and I'm under the understanding that there was 2 helicopters.
There were.
Near each other, or?
There were 2 helicopters. They were on the mission. One of them started to take off and then realized, I guess, that the weather was a condition and turned around and came back. But that helicopter and that crew and all the members on that crew are safe and sound.
Sure, one more question. Our crews at Fox 10 interviewed some people that live in the area.
Mm-hmm.
They heard some sounds, and they thought something was wrong. Will you be talking to people in the area to find out any more?
I personally won't, but I can tell you that a follow-on investigation will be conducted, and they typically are very thorough with those any type of aviation accident. Yes, sir. I'm not aware of any recording devices that are on our Blackhawks. They do have transponders so that their location is known, if you will. So, but there are no that I'm aware of, and I can stand corrected by the experts in the back, but I'm not aware of any like black boxes or anything that are on our Black Hawk helicopters. Anyway. Well, part of remaining current as a pilot, and again, I'm not a pilot, so but part of staying current is either in simulation or in the aircraft itself. They have to go through all types of tests where you fly into a fog bank, if you will, and instantly you have to stop flying visually and start flying on your instruments. That's something that they practice on a very common and regular sequence of events.
General, can you just talk about it's different when it's a guard unit, when you have 4 members of one unit. It's a terrific impact not only on the unit but on the community.
Yeah, it is. It's the National Guard is in over 3,000 communities in the United States, and we tell people that we have soldiers and airmen that are in every zip code in the continental United States, and so often the units are hometown units, and so it's aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, etc. That if we deploy them to a war fight or if we deploy them here in the state for an emergency, it is the entire community that leaves. And so, the Hammond area is affected, but as a state and as a nation, we will wrap our arms around them and take care of them until this search and rescue is over with. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Deployment background? Yeah, they to the war fight that we've been in the last 13 years. They deployed in 2004 and 5, and then they went again in 2008 and 9 for 1 year each time. And then they've deployed, since 2005, we've had numerous disasters here in the state of Louisiana. And it started with they were in Hurricane Katrina, Rita. They did the oil spill, the Mississippi River flood, and then Tropical Storm Isaac. But I can also tell you, every year they go out and, with the wildfires in the west, they go out and fly operations to drop water on the wildfires. They've been on missions on the border, supporting the immigration services. So they're a great unit. They have a great history, and they're tremendous pilots and tremendous soldiers.
General, can you speak a little bit to the Academy North Associated Press, to what they did say during Hurricane Katrina? Would they have been involved in some of the rescue?
Yes, sir. They all of the helicopter assets in Louisiana during Katrina were committed early. I mean, as soon as the storm effects went down low enough where we could get Blackhawks in behind the storm to start doing search and rescue, this unit and the other unit we have here in the state were the first ones in, and they stayed until the end. I would tell you from an aviation standpoint, they had what we call first or second touches and first touches where you get them off rooftops, so to speak, of about 50,000 personnel. And then first and second touches, a total of about 78,000 personnel that we moved collectively. You know, the Louisiana National Guard, active duty, the Coast Guard, Wildlife and Fisheries, all of us. So they were integral in the after effects of Katrina, and they saved thousands of lives during that storm.
Would they have been rooftop rescues or anything along those lines?
Sir, I'm sorry?
Would that have been rooftop rescues?
Yes, sir. They picked people off rooftops, took them off levee systems, pulled them out of the water, whatever was required. But I would tell you again, in Isaac, which is not as well publicized, we had about 6,000 citizens in Laplace that we had to do nighttime operations on, both by boat, high water vehicles, and aircraft. So.
That's a subdued Major General Glenn Curtis. He is the Adjutant General. He is, in effect, the commander of the Louisiana Army Guard and the Air National Guard, and he, in that role, commanded those 4 citizen soldiers who were believed dead following the crash of that Black Hawk helicopter off the coast of Louisiana in the early morning hours. Not a great deal of specifics about the mission, except that we did learn that there were 2 helicopters from the Louisiana Guard, from the 204th, the air squadron that flies out of Hammond, Louisiana, when that's where this news conference is coming to us from right now. And both of the pilots, the general told us, were instructor pilots, and that is just about the highest designation. It's not that you're just a good pilot, you're good enough to teach other pilots how to fly. He said they were flying a Marine operation at the time, and they had been in that role since Sunday. I believe the little bit of news that came out of this was that we heard the general say that they realized that the weather was bad and they were on their way back when this incident happened. And it'll be interesting to see if that's verified, because I'm fairly certain that that's what I heard the general say there, and it's kind of an aside, and I think it may have been one of those things that maybe missed escaped the purview of the folks in that room right there. One thing, too, to talk about is that pilots, and particularly helicopter pilots in the military, talk about training in the weather they fly, and that's exactly what was happening last night. And that's why we're bringing in Deb and Lucy right now to talk a little bit about the weather, because we know that into today there was heavy fog and some rain. You showed us the system there that was the genesis of all that. And all of this was just starting to come to a head, apparently, when this happened last night.
Just the right setup that they got as well, a lot of fog down that direction. Took a look at the reports from Pensacola's airport, which is a little farther inland and from even naval base that's down, it's right on the water. Pensacola Airport, you go through the city northward and even farther north, but there was limited visibility for all the early morning hours past midnight into the early morning hours of at least quarter mile to even less, about an 1/8 mile visibility. So there was dense fog, the weather setup, and I've gone back 12 hours to the beginning of this loop, and I'll stay here for a second or two. It's at 3 in the morning. So what's essentially been happening is a weak cold front dropped through, but it's a very weak front. Pay attention right over Pensacola, the cloud cover and the rain, is it just starts to stall as we go to about 5 to 6 o'clock right here, right in that hour. There's kind of a lull. It signals that front just kind of fades away. Now pay attention to rain that develops south. That's actually what's going to be our rain coming in Friday night and Saturday. It's going to be the same system, but it's just developing. It's warmer. Very, very humid air pushes that wave of rain northward. It's effectively another warm front. Almost like we had the warm front and created our fog situation with very calm conditions in front of it.
Right.
Very, very warm in that sector out ahead of it with that warm front, and there's relatively cold air behind, but it's a perfect zone Pensacola's in. As that front fades, the winds go calm, you got all the moisture left over, you got the competing air masses cold at the ground level, at least relatively colder, warmer and working in, and tons of moisture to work with. It's a perfect fog setup, and you can't have any wind. Going to have very calm wind conditions, so it does appear that you had fog. It was there. We know it. All the reports are saying it. But what comes key is you just mentioned, with the general that just mentioned, that they were both on their way back, that all of a sudden, this is something I mentioned even yesterday too, even here, fog can in an instant just go to zero visibility. It can become so dense, you can't even see right in front of you.
Yeah.
And that may be something that occurred, that they took off from the base, that you could have a little bit of visibility, that they could at least see, and flying by instrument too, we mentioned that they could at least know where they were going, know that they were at least a couple hundred feet or whatever, just guesstimating if there was something off the ground, so you know you're not going to be flying into the ground. But then visibility being an issue obviously is key, because that's how helicopters fly, as you know. Amateur aviators that kind of sit here at the desk. But by helicopter, you really have to have visibility. Any other state except for military, for helicopter flight, if you're in foggy conditions and you can't see, then you're grounded completely. You're not going to be able to take off.
Important perspective to a tragedy that has happened, and 11 members of the armed forces, 7 Marines, and 4 members of the Louisiana Army Guard apparently have perished in that helicopter crash, and we wanted to give you the very latest on that. And what we're hearing now this afternoon is that they are continually flying low. Helicopters are, perhaps even from that very outfit there that we heard the general talking about, flying low over Santa Rosa Sound, looking for any sign of that Black Hawk helicopter that went down with 11 people on board. Obviously, we're following this story, and our thanks to you, Devin, for adding an important piece to this puzzle